Hey, Scott, these are two complicated legal cases against two of the biggest players in the Buffalo billion scandal, Joseph Percoco, who was one of former Governor Andrew Cuomo's top aides, and Louis Ciminelli, who founded a Buffalo construction firm.
The Buffalo billion bid rigging case involved the South Buffalo Riverbend plant and saw several guilty verdicts. Louis Simonelli was convicted of wire fraud and wire fraud conspiracy in 2018, sentenced to 28 months in prison and fined $500,000. He was released from prison last year after the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. Today, the court unanimously overturned his conviction, saying prosecutors relied on the right to control theory of wire fraud.
What the Supreme Court said there was that this intangible right of economic information that supposedly the agency was deprived of is not a property right, and that the federal fraud statutes deal with property right. So what they've said here is this wasn't the kind of right that was covered by a federal fraud statute.
Joseph Percoco was found guilty of bribery and fraud in 2018 for accepting $300,000 in bribes tied to the Buffalo billion. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Today, the court also unanimously overturned his conviction. Percoco was tried on a theory of honest services, meaning that as a public official, prosecutors said he owes his honest services to the public.
What the Supreme Court then said was, however, the jury wasn't given enough of a clear definition for them to know where the line was crossed. When do you cross from a private citizen into some kind of influence over a governmental agency that you now owe the right of services to the public? And so they basically reversed this because the definition was so ambiguous to the trial court that they felt that they couldn't do their job.
The Buffalo billion trial started as a federal probe prompted by reporting from our partners at Investigative Post. Jim Heaney started digging into documents in 2014 and gave us his take on the Ciminelli case.
I think it's especially relevant to note that the court called what went down here a scheme. And the court went on to say prosecutors tried this case under a law that didn't apply.
So what happens next? That's still up in the air. Paul Cambria says the cases are sent back to the trial court and they decide. Live in the newsroom, Kelly Dudzik, Channel 2 News.